Michelle, Uzi, how are you guys?
Doing great.
Good.
I'm
Um,
surviving.
you surviving?
Yes, sir. Tired.
Why? Partying too much?
I woke up. Yeah, definitely. Woke up at 5 a.m. and flew to California.
Oh, okay. What's in California?
Just work.
Hmm. All right. You getting ready for 1010? Where in California are you?
Newport.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Um, Michelle, what do you want to start with first?
Well, maybe we start with something else while the room is kind of quiet and not drop the big dog, which is O1 that dropped this week.
Don't
What
worry,
else you
don't
had on
worry
the
about the
plate?
room. Don't worry about the audience. I think there's something else going on at the same time today. Trump is talking or whatever. So we can do our thing, and then people can listen to the recording if they so wish.
So of course, O1 is
So
is huge.
yeah, we can talk about all one today. Um, we can talk about Brad Adcock's Figure AI thread. I know people are really excited about that. I want to ask you about Agent Force by Salesforce. Mark Bainoff's interview was pretty interesting, I thought. At least a couple of sentences. Robert, how are you?
Doing great. Just got off a long road trip. Checked
Nice,
into all the Tesla stuff, which we talked about earlier.
nice. What are you most excited about today that happened last
Um,
week?
it was a slowish news day. New iPhones are coming. iOS 18. If you haven't loaded it, you should load that. I don't know that that excites me though.
Hmm. What about all one?
It's pretty good. I was asking it some planning questions today to try to catch up to everybody else. I was on vacation the last few days, so I was watching everybody else having fun. I figured I'd see what it was all about. Doesn't have vision feature though. That's sort of weird. And but it's better than like if you ask it, hey, I'm a fat white dude. I'd like to run a marathon in 2 years. Can you plan out how I might do that? And it does pretty well. It's a lot better than when I started checking that, with ChatGPT 3.5 a long time ago.
So O1 doesn't have is not multimodal, Michelle?
No, right now it's back to pre when we got ChatGPT 4 and it was text only and it told us it was going to be Omni soon. So we're back to square one of having only text back and forward. And I've been using a lot of 4.0 to craft a good query for O1 and then using my dual conversation typical setup of like crafting a good prompt on the workshop and the executioner being O1.
I see. Interesting. Um, yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, I submit my pictures. Submit a picture, like for example, I had a wound. I was biking and somebody didn't get out of the way from the other side, so I scraped against a concrete barrier and got the wound that way on my arm. And I sometimes take a picture and send it to ChatGPT and ask how's it progressing, and just kind of gives me an update. It's doing well. It should take a few more days. Blah blah blah. Use this and do that. It's like, ah, cool. So you're telling me I can't do that with all one now, huh, Uzi?
Well, I just wanted to ask if ChatGPT asked about your wound and how it's progressing.
Not unprompted. No, I didn't get that. I mean, that thing first, like when I first read that, the screenshot of conversation. Oh, ChatGPT messaged me first. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then I was like, 10 seconds later, I'm like, it's not that amazing. I mean, that's literally what these apps do nowadays with these notifications, every now and then. How's that different? You know. Anyway.
It's a good showcase of how personal the relationship can get with ChatGPT OpenAI with the memory feature. So, like, we don't know yet. At first, I told you like that was faked, and then the people they came back, and maybe it was not faked. So we don't know. We're still in limbo about this. but it's like if there's long-term value in locking in the customer for OpenAI, it's with this memory feature, and then you can develop like a long-term relationship with a tool that really knows a lot about you, then you're locked in. The same way, like once you build the Apple ecosystem, you're locked in, or other commercial relationships that you end up locked in because the product gets you. Like you get into any Teslas and it places the seats and everything, and it knows your settings. You're locked in. So that's kind of what they're building.
Why do you think Grok and Gemini are going to get there too at some point where it has a memory update for us, a list of memories, and um, it's got messages every now and then, seeing how my wound's doing?
It's
Uzi?
sick.
No, Michelle, you can go because I have a joke.
It's what they have to do because that's what immediately what people do. I mean, they released Grok, and it's not really able to know about you, or you have to like mention your at name, but it has like general knowledge. If Robert asks about himself, the model knows about Robert because he's like a big deal. But if I ask about Boom19, which is my handle, it doesn't spit anything useful unless it does a search or something. But that's what people immediately do. So like they, like the regular people, they go like, oh, this AI is wicked smart, what does it know about me? Immediately, that's like people googling this. It's the version of like people googling themselves. So like they have to build it that way at some point.
Omar, you're
It's
not in the Trump space, huh?
you know, I don't find myself usually that interested in listening to him speak. He kind of just rambles on about random stuff, so I thought I'd come in here instead.
Is Elon not there too?
I don't know if he is or isn't. I didn't see that. I thought it was just Trump and some other
Yeah, I think
organization.
so. I think we have about the same size of audience, and that's encouraging. Anyway, we're talking about O1. Are you using it yet?
Yeah, I've used it a little bit.
What'd you think?
Well, it's pretty impressive. It can answer a lot of questions that the other models couldn't answer. So, this idea of having the model think for longer before generating an answer seems to be promising. And I think they're going to be able to use this to generate a lot more training data for their other models like GPT-4o.
Michelle compared taking time for inference to slowing the car down in terms of FSD. Michelle, right?
Well, you asked like why can't they use something like that to drive the car, and was like, well, it's way too slow to drive a car because the model needs to react like right on the spot.
Right. Michelle, does GPT-O1 increase your confidence that Tesla FSD can get to fully autonomous with vision only?
I think it's a completely different endeavor, and it's like asking if like a hammer is good at cutting pineapples.
Is it?
I mean, you can take a hammer to cut a pineapple if you want to.
I got you. Uzi?
I do think going back to the unprompted sort of checking in with the consumer, it does open the door to this, I guess, relationship with your large language model, especially when you factor in they did have Scarlett Johansson's voice. So if you have Scarlett Johansson reaching out to you with her voice, or whoever else that's a voice actor, there will be a weird world where it's like movie Her.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can tell you, Uzi, I picked a voice for my ChatGPT, which is Breezer, I think, and then I cannot use any other voice because it's just like it feels weird. It's mine. Like this is the one I prefer.
Interesting. All right. Um, Michelle, can you tell me about Agentforce by Salesforce?
So yeah, they're public about this now. They wanna make their product, because a lot of these smaller startups have been trying to sell AI B2B, and if they want to stay hip, they have to provide that kind of service. But for the big customers, because like if it's 300 salespeople Salesforce, they might take a small vendor. But if it's like Pepsi or like some chips company or whatever, like something huge, they're not going to take a small like 20, 30 people startup to implement their AI angle. They want a big player like Salesforce to be able to pick up that kind of huge challenge of like 5,000, 10,000 Salesforce large people. And that's what they do. I mean, if they would not do it, it would be disappointing. And what they're selling seems ready, but I've not seen it deployed on a large scale customer yet. It's
Okay,
still
good.
like the early
So
phase.
that's exactly what opened my eyes. What you said at the end there, because he said at some point in the interview, he goes, Salesforce is going to roll out. It's live now by some customers and rolling out call center AI indistinguishable from humans to thousands of customers by the end of the year. I thought he was going to say by the end of next year or decade or something, but by the end of this year, thousands of customers. And I looked up how many people in the US work in call centers, somewhere between 500,000 to 700,000 figure. It's a lot of people. Is this the first application of AI that we're seeing that's going to replace a large scale number of people? Omar?
And
Yeah. I mean, it really is incredible the rate at which these models are advancing. Just as fast as critics can say, oh, they can't do this or they can't do that, a new model release comes along and all of a sudden they can do that. So we're headed into a very crazy future.
Michelle, what do you think? And then Robert.
I mean, when there was no automated menu, you would just be like dialing in the company and hearing music, and then you would get an operator or sort of level one, and then they would get you through the right department. And then they implemented these menus like press 9 for this and press 4 for that, and then it eliminated a bunch of job. But that's just like the following layer to that. I mean, at some point, if you could chat with the chatbot. I mean, younger people like are gonna maybe do that, but then other folks they really need to have some. I mean, bigger companies sometimes they do it with outsourcing. So like the first person you're gonna talk to is not really in America, and then if you go past level one, you'll get a technician. But I do lots of tech support, and then you get a real technician that's in America, and these are the jobs you're talking about. So I think the jobs that are at play are more these international call centers offering services in English. They're gonna be impacted first before the jobs in America that might be like escalation or more complex cases than just like a password reset.
I agree with that, but I think it goes deeper. I visited a bank in Brazil called Nubank, and they had people standing in line for 6 months to buy their credit card. Why? Because the customer service was better. And I interviewed the founders, and they built their own customer relationship management system, which answered the phones and didn't put anybody in a phone tree. So entrepreneurs or business managers who are aren't looking at that for making their business better, their customer sat numbers better, their customer service numbers better, their churn rates lower, are missing out. There is a revolution coming here with phones. Why would anybody answer phone for their business in 2 or 3 years? It just makes no sense to me. That and this the quality is unbelievable. I mean, I used Hippocratic AI, which is a medical AI that answers phones for nurses' stations. And I talked to it for 20 minutes, and it's like, whoa, this is like talking to a nurse. It's like human, and that's what's coming now. That's what's here.
Yeah, that's what's here. Uzi,
I'm curious if, and I've seen this from my personal experience with my work.
Uzi, can you guys hear Uzi?
I can hear.
Yes.
What is going on with my? Okay, I'll be right back.
Well, I'll seize the space,
Yes,
but
please.
I think this happened last week too. Um, well, the point was is that I think for us the engagement peaked at a certain point, and we're definitely continuing the program. But I'm curious if people have like a cognitive resistance to AI, so call centers or helpers.
Omar,
There are many
yeah,
people who are resistant to AI. I've been talking to many people. People hate. There's many people out there afraid of AI, hate AI, don't want to talk to AI. But in a lot of these cases, you're not going to know you're talking to an AI. It's that good. And certainly, if you're asking, very specific business kind of questions, it can fool you unless it admits that it's an AI when you call up.
can you ask it? Are you AI?
I don't know how consistent that answer would be from different companies, right?
They're not gonna lie to you.
Are you sure?
Maybe we can give it a test.
I'm
Select
pretty
all the
sure it
traffic
would.
lights.
I'm pretty sure it would be honest with you, but most people aren't even going to think about it because they're going to call a business up, and, talk to someone, and get their answer and hang up, and they're not going to think of asking, "Are you an AI?"
Yeah. And David Sachs mentioned, which is even the more interesting part, is let's say you have an AI on your iPhone and your iPhone calls the business. Their AI picks up, the two AIs talk to each other, and you're not even involved at all. That's pretty amazing too.
That's very possible. Yeah, I was just talking to a guy who's making a project management system. He was showing me a system that works sort of like that. It's like, whoa, there's so much weird shit about to hit people.
Michelle?
I mean, in incident management, we've used AI very early to pick up on trends of like all the agents that are making tickets. They're starting to write notes about what they're talking about with the users. So there's maybe a 8 minute, 10 minutes delay before we get, oh, there's like a lot of tickets about this particular subject. Is something happening? Then we transition into transcribing voice to text all of the calls, and then we could have almost live, like maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes, like warning, like that something is speaking out of the ordinary amount of calls about a particular system. But then going all in with these AI agents picking up the first line of calls, you would know right away that something is wrong. So like that's you're winning. And if it's a cybersecurity angle, minutes matters sometimes.
Yeah, makes sense. Michelle, you said this AI that Salesforce is rolling out or other AI like it for call centers will first impact people who basically just reset your password, I think is the example you gave. And then how long before the people who work at call centers in the US for more technical problems, let's say, um, are impacted? Are we talking a year out, 2 years out, a few months more out?
Well, what you encounter sometimes is that the first level follows standard operating procedures, and sometimes even level one and two. It's just like they need more skilled people at following these standard operating procedures. So there is an impact if your job is just to apply more skillfully the standard operating procedures. Well, that impacts level two. That impacts people right here in the US. That especially with how the O1 model is really sophisticated. That makes me believe that it's gonna be better than a lot of these agents, even if they take quote unquote like escalations or complicated cases. That they showed that this is beyond just password reset what these agents are able to deal with, and then you're left with only the like really weird there's actually a glitch cases, or in these like chatbots era now, you get like one employee that's just overlooking 10, 15 chat conversations that customers are having with the robots, and they might pick up, or if they notice a customer is frustrated with the bot, they will intervene. But it multiplies the amount of chats they were able to do before, which was like maybe two or three at the same time.
Okay, so you're telling me that we're not that far away, maybe a few more months, and we're going to start hearing about news of companies replacing call center employees with AI. Is that right? A few more months.
Or
Um,
they will like stop posting job offerings and run with the people they have. They might compress 20%, something like that.
yeah, and as you all may know, under the account macro analyst, I follow macro news very closely, and one thing that really shocked people in the last few days on the macro front is how quickly job openings dropped in the last month. So that goes to maybe what you're saying. Okay. Yoda, welcome.
Hey guys.
How are you?
I'm a little shocked, or as shooked, as they say.
I'm just glad we all learned Ashok's pronunciation today. Thanks for reminding us. What do you think about what do you think about this? That Salesforce is starting a service called Agentforce, and Mark Bainoff says um, Salesforce is rolling out call center AI indistinguishable from humans to thousands of customers by the end of the year.
Yeah, this is an obvious trend. If you look at uh, advertising, this has been happening for years, but of course, now what the marketer is doing on the advertising side, and I'll get to sales, but on the advertising side, really the Googles just want you to upload your budget, your KPI, and humans get out of the way. Let the machine optimize, let the AI do the work. It began with budget optimization, conversion optimization, and now creative through generative AI. Now the same thing is going to happen on the sales side. Don't worry about creating your pipeline, following up. Let the AI, do all the back and forth, all the pipeline building, and then on customer service, it's the same thing. I think, especially with customer service, AI is advantage because it is calm, it is impartial, it is patient.
Good. Thank you. Uzi?
Yeah, and I'd like to add it to Yoda's list of descriptions. I also say that the chatbot is 24/7. It doesn't get hungry, doesn't need food or complain. And I assume over time it would probably be cheaper and um, more susceptible to critical feedback. But definitely the food and 24/7 you can count on.
Michelle?
I mean, we've been all positive, but I've been using AI to do tech support since it came out, and it frustratingly really often hallucinates. I mean, I was troubleshooting a Mac, and like I've never used Mac, and it goes like, go in this menu, or like go on the App Store, and if you have an older than 13 version of Macs, the App Store will suggest you to install an old version. And I had to tell ChatGPT, even '01, I tried all of them. It's like, no, it's not doing it, or it really like few times a week it points out like go in this option menu and click this check boxes for exactly what you want. to do. And I go like, the checkbox does not exist, sir. So like it hallucinates, and I don't know how they're gonna deal with hallucinations in a B2B or business to consumer situations. Like we've seen the guy trolling the dealership chatbot, and then suing them. Like they're gonna get into dangerous territory, in like they're somehow responsible for what these AI agents are telling their customers.
Robert.
The other thing is that these can answer all sorts of quantity of calls all at the same time, where if you have 100 people working, you got to put other people on hold and force them to wait. This is going to change the call center business deeply.
Robert, can you repeat what you said? Sorry.
AI can do things at the same, many things at the same time, like answer 10,000 calls that all come at the same time. I worked on support at Microsoft, and we only had 100 people answering phone calls most of the time. And so if 10,000 people called in at the same time, most of those people are going to be put on hold for a while your 100 people work through the problems. This is going to enable you to use call centers for new things, like a Super Bowl ad or something like that. Hey, call our company, talk to our bot, right? And you can't do that with 100 people.
That reminds me of the movie Her, towards the end when he's asking, how many people are you talking with right now?
Exactly. The spreadsheet I showed off a week ago can you can have it fill in. It's like having 10,000 interns working for you, the founder said, because it can do all that work all at the same time, parallel at the same time.
Yeah, Robert, somebody in the replies, and Sean Taft asked, Robert makes all the spaces because it's his clone, while the real Scobalizer is in the Matrix.
If only that were true. Coming soon. I'm working on it.
Uzi.
I was adding something to the comments, but I wanted to mention, to Michelle's credit, I think there's a balancing act between for the call bot, between exploration and by being more explorative. You know, I guess that would include being more human and not staying on a rigid topic schedule. Whereas you also want to mitigate risk and not go down a rabbit hole with your call center bot at the same time.
I think Jacob has a question. Jacob?
Hey, yeah. Thanks for letting me up. I was just kind of wondering about if anyone knew anything about like the new Dolly, which I think is probably gonna be called Dolly 4, within OpenAI. I'm an artist, so that's why I'm asking.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, have you heard, or Omar, or anybody else, have you guys heard about Dolly 4?
Nope. Haven't heard anything about Dolly 4.
Robert, nobody?
Not beyond I expect some new thing to come along. The one that I'm watching is Midjourney because they're working on a 3D environment that you can talk to, and that's got me hot and bothered. I call that the holodeck.
All right. Jacob, any follow-up questions?
No. Thanks. Yeah, Midjourney's pretty good. I thought that was funny. He said hot and bothered. But yeah, thanks. I'm just like getting really excited about it because I use Dolly 3 a lot. So I'm just, I saw this was an AI conversation, and I just felt I would come up and ask any other AI enthusiasts about it. But I guess I'll just keep waiting and stuff to see what finds out.
If we
Thanks.
hear anything, we will let people know in the space. Uzi.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'll research middle of the space, but I'll give my flowers to Dolly. That's how I made this profile photo. and you have a range of aesthetics that you could choose from, which make it great to create with. But I've just been really using Grok for that.
All right, great. All right. Let's see. Michelle, anything else about O1? When is it going to be going to, like, when am I going to be able to use it?
It's rolled out to all paid users. So finally, there's something that for the people that pay $20 a month, we were just like all the features we've been paying for a long time were slowly trickling down. Even memory like is rolling out to everyone for free, and we were like, why am I paying for this? So right now it's limited to paid subscribers, Teams subscribers, and there's API access, of course. But it's about 4 times as expensive for what I consider to be an incremental improvement. I mean, it's difficult to quantize like something that's slightly more intelligent. Is it 100 times more intelligent, or 20% more intelligent, or valuable? But it's somewhere in between those two.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine this morning. He doesn't follow these things very closely. He's in real estate, and he subscribes to ChatGPT, the paid version, and under his business account. And for family stuff, he just uses the basic one. And I asked him, I said, "Can you tell the difference?" And he's done tests before, and he says he can't tell the difference between the two. I don't know if O1, O4, O1 is going to change that, right? Because I feel like if something is way smarter than us anyway, are you smart enough to tell how smart the smarter one is? Robert?
It's slower actually than the 4 model. And the 4 gives you sometimes more detailed answers than the 1 model. The 1 does planning better. So if you're trying to ask it to plan out, I did plan out, 2 years of running so I can run a marathon, it does better at that.
Michelle?
And there's the whole like 30 messages per week or 30 conversations per week, but like it makes you second thought like, wait, I must ask something valuable into this O1 model because I don't want to run out of queries. But I think they're getting extremely valuable like that by putting the limit. It's not only like a money saving, but it ensures that a great proportion of the queries are something that people found valuable. I think I rarely start a conversation with O1 anymore, but it's able to load the context, quite a lot of context from an existing 4.0 conversation. And then if you're not satisfied with the answer, or like you asked it something that requires a little bit more deeper thinking, I was crafting an email that needed a lot of context taking into account, and the result from 4.0 was not great. Right next to my the reply I got from ChatGPT, I click the little contextual menu. Sometimes you can re-roll and ask AI to just do it again. I do it a lot with Grok as well, to just re-roll. But you can, in that menu, saying ask O1 instead of 4.0, and then it goes with it picks up where you were in that conversation with this more deeper thinker model. It taught for like 20-30 seconds, and then the quality of the answer was like much better.
Really? Can you compare the quality of the answer? Like, what do you mean it was much better?
There were a lot of, well, it's not specifics about the client, but it's like on in a complicated manner. And then I was trying to say like this system is us, but this other system is the vendor, and the problem you're having is the interface between the two. So there was like a delicate, polite email that I need to put out that says it's them, not us, but like I want to stay available, and if they say this and this and that, I can pick it up and deal with that. But if it's these few points, they have to deal with it. And then 4.0 got like confused, and it was like outputting something that was not accurately what I wanted to say. And I was just like re-rolling it twice with 4.0, being disappointed, it was confused. Rolled it once with O1 and it was like perfect.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Hmm. Would you say it's worth paying $20 a month to ChatGPT?
I mean, for your real estate friend, it's worth paying $25 a month, even if he's the only member of his team, because it's the commercial level that protects you against being sued for copyright, and it's like a commercial data protection type of level. They don't use any of your inputs whatsoever for training. For the paid $20 version a month, you really need to go in settings and disable that, but it's checked by default. So a lot of people don't realize they're still contributing to the model training, which is a good thing, but it depends like on business stuff. You really want to be 100% private.
I will pass on that information. Thank you very much. Omar, are we about to see in the next 6 to 12 months, are we going to see millions of people getting displaced by AI?
I mean, I don't really look at it that way. I think of it as millions of people are going to be freed from doing something stupid because of AI. What's one of the worst experiences of our life? When you got to call a company. I got to call the bank. I got to go call this company. I got to call the phone company. Worst experience of your life. Hello. Listen to this. Doo 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 doo. You can't even do anything else on your phone. You're forced to listen to this low quality doo 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 doo. And then finally, oh hello, this is Karpar. Uh, okay, what's your number? I already typed it in the phone menu, but here it is. Okay, let me transfer you to somebody else. Doo 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 doo. You're on the phone for like 30 minutes. Sometimes they go, hey, you know, your wait time is going to be an hour and a half. Should we just call you back? So it's terrible. Okay. People lose customers over it. It's a waste of time, waste of your precious life you spent on the phone. And I'm so thankful that my children and grandchildren will never know this experience. You're going to pick up the phone and call the company, and you're going to get straight to a person, except it's not a person, it's actually an AI. But it's going to be so realistic, you won't be able to tell the difference. It's going to understand pop culture. You can go say, "Oh, did you see that new you know, Shakira music video?" And it'll know what you're talking about. And it'll be able to customize itself. If you call and you start talking with an accent, it can match that. It can speak to you in any language in the world, and it can execute your request right there, doing anything. Obviously, what I'm talking about is far above the capabilities of the models today. What we have today kind of sucks. It's probably going to do the wrong thing a lot of the time. But where this is trending towards is you call, you speak the request directly as if it's a person, and it just executes the request. You eliminate all the call center employees. The thing is now open 24/7, no calling and, oh, you called outside our normal business hours. Remember to call tomorrow. And it's a customizable person. It can be customized for anything. I mean, you're going to call the phone company and the AI is like going to sound hot, like it's seducing you. You're going to fall in love with this thing. And then she's going to go, oh my God, you should totally add this package to your account. It's only $20 a month. And you're going to have such a crush on this AI that you're going to add the package and end up increasing your bill. The company's revenue is going to increase. So overall, it'll just be a much better, simpler world. And nobody will cry, oh my God, these poor people, they lost their call center jobs. Poor Kripar, what's he going to do now? Kripar's going to figure something else out to do. We don't need him in the call center. That was just a waste of everybody's time.
Wow. I was cracking up. Uzi?
A lot of what Omar explained, I think, will just be captured by productivity gains. I don't know if you'll see like mass layoffs, but rather you'll just see people not have their contracts renewed, and then those that do have their jobs or maintain them, they will, it's case by case, obviously, but and case by case by company and by individual. So make that distinction. But the ones that do have their jobs will tend to be more um, productive with AI, and the parts that can be easily automated out will either be consulted or like you'll have a consulting company help figure that out, or you'll develop the ability to automate it within the company, which is what I'm doing partially.
I mean, there will obviously be productivity gains that benefits the entire society, entire world, and everything. But in the near term, if Kupar doesn't get his job renewed, contract renewed, then we're going to see an increase in unemployment rate, unemployment. Omar, do you think? I'm going to ask a macro question to Omar in a second, but Michelle, go ahead first.
Well, these AI agents being used for good, and especially the way Omar described it, sounds amazing. But for the same reason the ChatGPT voice feature is being delayed so much is that for like every 10,000 people you give such a capability, you have between 50 and 200 people using it to scam people out of their money. And they're already doing it by paying a few dollars an hour people overseas. But if it's an AI that's that good, the success rate is going to be way above the currently like 1% these humans are able to scam people out of. And this like becomes a really delicate situations. I mean, the people that are vulnerable to this are very few right now, and that's going to grow if the AI agents are really convincing. Unfortunately, there's like we can't have nice things because of criminals.
Yeah. Sean Taft clipped another clip of this space. He did the same thing on Tesla Live. So I pinned the top of our screens. This is the first guy I've ever seen that can figure out what this clip function at the bottom right of your screens, the scissors. For the life of me, I couldn't figure it out. So I'm going to have to ask him directions. And more clips the better. So if somebody in the audience wants to clip a section of this space and share with your followers, I would really appreciate it, actually. Omar, do you think the bond market, so right now we're seeing the federal funds rate obviously at 5.25 to 5.5 range. On Wednesday, we're going to get a cut, whether it's 25 or 50 basis points. We don't really know just yet. But if you look at the yield curve, 6 months, a year out, 2 years out, 10 years out, it's much lower levels. Do you think that's part of the deal here?
Sorry, your audio cut out towards the end there.
Do you think part of the reason why the yield curve is inverted is due to AI potential displacing jobs?
No, I mean, people have been worried about automation displacing jobs since they dawned the Industrial Revolution. When they saw that they made machines to automate making clothes, they said, "Hey, they're taking our jobs. Now a machine can make a shirt much faster, and we're all out of work." And they went and they burned the factory down and said, "We're going to try and stop this." But back then, shirts were so expensive that your average person could only afford like one shirt. If you got a hole in that shirt, you're like, "Oh, there goes my shirt, my one shirt that I can afford." This allowed people to have way more clothes at a way lower cost. And guess what? We found new things to do. New industries emerged. That guy who's that tech support job that's getting displaced, he may now not have to answer the phone directly. And believe me, with that job, you're answering the same question from customers over and over. How do I log in? Push the login button. How do I log in? You push the login button. So now, what if Kripal could answer one time, and the system now knows his answer, and it can answer correctly? And all Kripal now has to do is focus on the new things that are popping up, or training the AI. There may be dramatically less people. There may be a tenth of the people and you only keep the best 10% who are going to train the AI because the AI is handling most of the volume, but people shift. They find new things to do. I think the reason the yield curve is inverted is just because the market expects that the Fed is going to stay too high too long and it'll end in a recession.
Okay. Anything else on GPT-01, Uzi?
On the labor question, I wanted to add some like clarification. I think you're right. Unemployment will be a problem possibly, but I don't think like the caveat I wanted to add is that I think it will be a gradual shift where your productivity of your colleagues might outweigh one other, and so you just don't renew it.
I mean, that's, this very optimistic of you, but when Mark Bainoff says we're going to roll out call center AI indistinguishable from humans to thousands of customers by the end of the year, there's going to be some short-term turbulence in the employment market. And over the longer term, I agree with you with Omar that this will lead to higher productivity across the society, across the world. But there's going to be some volatility, it looks like, in the coming months. Michelle, then Chris.
I mean, there was a pushback against these phone menus, and these like boomers were like pushing 000 to just like agent and not talk to these phone menus. And there's the similar pushback to these like self-service checkout jobs. But this is because both of these systems makes the customer experience worse, not better. But these AI agents are going to make the customer service better instead of worse. I mean, yeah, there's a possibility for hallucinations, but like this morning, I called in somewhere else for from a vendor, and they literally told me the wrong information, sending me 2 hours in a rabbit hole. And then hopefully an AI agent would have not made that mistake of giving me the wrong information, and it would have been a better experience and solved in 10 minutes instead of 3 hours.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting conversation. Um, I agree. This is going to be very disruptive in various ways. But something that I think, you know, harping on both of these points, when a lot of American companies like basically said, okay, we can do it cheaper in China, right? There was always a transitionary period where they thought that they could achieve a lot of reduction in cost, but then to the point of, I can't remember, I think it was Michael who said that, you have this reduction in quality. So it takes a while for things basically to like ramp up. I also agree that this is a lot better than effectively retraining an entire staff or team, to do things. So that is, it's a really interesting world we're living in here because of the quickness of the disruption. Really similar to like with Tesla cars, and this, it will be incredibly disruptive once they flip that switch, and all of a sudden they're autonomous within a state, then another state, then another state. It's going to be, it's a fascinating time to be alive.
Thank you, Chris. Chris, I believe this is the first time you're speaking in this space. Would you like to give us a few sentences on your background?
I'm in AI and technology. I've been dealing in automation for practically my entire life. Everything that I've been doing has been related to deal with marketing and big data applications and how you can draw insights from these type of things, and converting browsers into buyers. And I've shifted into automation and into the AI space, and I think this is an interesting space. Yeah, I've never been here before either.
Perfect. Yeah, this AI amateurs, open to everybody. If anybody in listener mode would like to come up and ask a question, you're more than welcome to do so. We have people on the board who are also common speakers in regular speakers in Tesla Live, which is a space I run at 1 p.m. Eastern on weekdays. And, we're just trying to all learn about AI and how to leverage AI to increase our productivity. So everyone's welcome to come up to speaker board, ask a question, and contribute, maybe share a story. Dan Nardo.
Hey, good evening, guys. Thank you. I think an interesting question here is if you start thinking back 5 years ago with business process outsourcing and outsourcing call centers and a lot of these jobs to the Philippines, to India, to Indonesia, what is it going to do to the socioeconomic systems in these countries, like their retirement systems? Who is going to be paying for all of these folks that are now without jobs because AI has replaced it and we're in kind of quality assurance mode?
Omar?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally people tend to focus way more on job loss than on the gains that humanity is going to get out of this technology. And this is a technology where, every technology has good and bad sides, but the benefit is it's so lopsided towards the benefit, and the loss is so small by comparison. But humans have a psychological bias for loss aversion. We tend to feel the pain of a loss twice as much as the pleasure of a gain. Think about if you were at work and your boss says, "Hey, congratulations, you're employee of the month. Here's $10." You'd say, "Okay, cool, I guess." But if you had $10 that you were going to go use to buy something and you realize you lost it, you left it behind, that pain stings twice as much. So we tend to focus on, all these jobs we're going to lose. When in reality, imagine if somebody cured cancer and cured all kinds of cancer. One quick pill you could take and it's just gone. And imagine all the suffering and pain and heartache that would be eliminated by this. Now, it would be silly to say, "Oh my God, those poor cancer doctors, they're going to lose their job." Yes, they were probably making a lot of money treating cancer, but I think even they will be happy to move to some other different area of medicine. Similarly, the amount of benefit this technology is going to create for humanity is so great. There will be some disruption, but generally, I think people are going to be much happier. The kind of things AI is going to start handling for us first is the kind of stuff we hate doing.
Chris?
Omar, first of all, I love your insights, all your videos. Anybody who hasn't watched his videos, you guys should watch them on YouTube or X. I'm curious to hear your perspective on how disruptive you think that things will be based on the way that you see things progressing, because you have a good read on this stuff.
Well, the new O1 model came out. Everyone said, "Oh my God, it's so smart. It's like a PhD student." And then somebody asked it, "Hey, what number's bigger, 9.8 or 9.11?" And it goes, "Well, obviously 9.11 is bigger." And this is the supposed PhD student, okay? Meanwhile, a middle school student could probably answer that question better than the most advanced AI model in the world. So, although these models are impressive, I think humans are safe for now. I think these changes are going to be introduced gradually into society, and they'll be introduced in a way where there will be displacement, but generally, the gains for society, both in terms of GDP, productivity, just general quality of life, will be enormous.
Chris?
Yeah, so I do agree with how you ended there, but there, I believe, is a real disruption that I presume that you've delved into the new O1 mini and preview models. I've been like nonstop on these things, testing them, retesting them, just like being pretty amazed and looking at the research and what other people have been saying. And that threshold that I recently read a chart, maybe if I find it, I'll post it on here. It showed where we are right now with this model. Now, they had, who knows how accurate the stuff actually is. But when I tie together the ability for these models to be able to be queried through an API and be run as agents, and then I I have recently just had a oh shit moment in terms of the speed that all this could now be progressing, especially with what GPT or with what ChatGPT, OpenAI has been saying in relationship to these new models. They're apparently utilizing the current data from the output of these mini and preview models to build their next one. And that is really where things are like, it seems like this next step is going to be a really big one.
Yeah, things are moving really fast. And these models are being used to train even better models. That's kind of the crazy thing about it. It's okay, well, now we've got this huge model. We can generate an even larger volume of training data to train an even better model. And you're really seeing that across multiple domains. You're seeing it with FSD, you're seeing it with models like OpenAI. I mean, O1 isn't really supposed to be a replacement for the main ChatGPT model. It's kind of meant to be a companion. So it's interesting that you're seeing these models kind of spread out across multiple domains, that you have your Omni models that are sort of a front end interface for communication. But now you're starting to develop deeper models for reasoning, for thinking through problems in a more in depth way than a standard LLM would.
Well, the uniqueness here is really this the I guess the term that I like to use the most here is, for me, it was an unlock. It seems to me with this O1 model, the problems that I was having in all previous models in respect to properly directing it, and one has to really coax it to like give you like the information that you want, and then sometimes it hallucinates down a certain path. Really, with these O1 mini models, I mean, you could have a specialized agent that just focuses on completing a specific task, and then essentially have a workflow where you can assure perfect output. That's what it really seems like to me. Now, to what extent, the prices will come down, but things have been dropping so quickly that I really feel there is an unlock right in front of us.
Okay, halfway. We're halfway. We have another hour to go. Okay, we have a couple other things to talk about. Any other comments on all one before we switch topics? All right.
I mean, I think what O1 really shows is that there's a lot of ideas we haven't tried. Like just letting the model think more, letting it critique its own output and say, no, wait a minute, I was actually wrong about that. And then coming up with a final answer. We're seeing it more closely start to mimic the human thought process. And there's clearly just so many things that we haven't done, haven't tried. I think the AI systems of the future will really involve many different models talking to each other, checking each other, collaborating with each other, and producing a final output that is not like one person, but is really like an entire company working together. So O1 is exciting, and it really shows that as much as people talk about catching OpenAI and the commoditization of their models, when we take the next step forward in a frontier model, it's still usually coming from OpenAI and not Google, not Meta, not XAI, or not anybody else.
Interesting. All right. Let's talk about Apple. Some news this morning that Apple iPhone sales are down 10-15%. Robert, some are attributing this to Apple Intelligence not coming until fall. Did Apple Osborne its current iPhone sales by announcing Apple Intelligence this fall?
I think it's worse than that. The early results we're seeing from Apple Intelligence from journalists and others who've had their hands on it are very not exciting. And so I think that's driving this. If we saw a huge release coming in November, I think people would be more excited. Also, the average everyday person is scared of AI or hates AI or is resisting AI. And I was just doing a bunch of customer research in Idaho, talking to people, normal people outside the valley. They're not AI. They're not real whipped up yet about AI like we are. And so I think that's feeding into it. Plus, the phone, let's be honest, hasn't changed much since last year. There's nothing really that's. I mean, what got better microphones? It's hard to get real excited about this new phone.
Okay.
I think
Uzi?
that's showing up in the sales.
Yep. Uzi,
Yeah,
Michelle, then Omar.
for every Robert and myself, I have like other, two other friends that are trying to get in on the refreshed upgrade cycle because of the AI. But yeah, I've seen the same thing as Robert. Like what's it called? The pre-orders were down below expectations. I don't think they're marketing it well, even though the concept of it is exciting on its own.
Michelle?
They mentioned it. They mentioned it very briefly, but it's true. And all of these Apple Intelligence features are available on iPhone 15 and 16. So you don't have to have 16 for Apple Intelligence to work. They kind of hinted at it when they put out the iPhone 15. And Robert was talking about how they're not using the whole chip that's on the phone when the 15 came out. And that's what we're seeing right now is that Apple Intelligence works on iPhone 15 and 16.
Okay. Chris, then Omar.
Just really quick on this topic, I have like a huge, big opinion on this, and I don't know when they're going to do it. This the this restriction I think that Apple is dealing with on Apple Intelligence, or how they're trying to manage this, is how much control they want to basically give up. If Apple Intelligence allows you the equivalent of being able to essentially trigger an action button, right? That allows you to use that device, this Apple device is your front end to essentially your agents or whatever you want to be happening on the back end, and then allows it also to notify you, meaning they don't lock this down and try to make it just Apple and it's controlling it. That is what would lead them to be successful. I feel the same applies to Alexa and their devices, but I'm not sure if they're powerful enough to handle these things. Thanks for letting me speak.
Sure. Omar, what do you think about Apple sales potentially dropping year over year this year because iPhone 16 just doesn't appear to be very popular?
Well, it looks like they've shipped roughly the same iPhone for the last 6 years. So I bought one. I'm picking it up on Friday at the Apple Store. They're opening a new Apple Store in my neighborhood mall, which I'm very excited about. It's opening on that day. And I've been using the new iOS and new iPhone features on my iPhone 15 for a few months now. And they've got some great features in there. Like, for example, it'll read your text messages and emails with their local LLM and summarize them for you so you don't have to read them yourself. So you can just quickly glance and, someone goes, "Hey, how have you been? How was the trip to blah, blah, blah? Anyway, I need to know what you think about this." It'll skip all the BS and just give you the point right in the summary so you can see what the text is about. And, just little things like that. So, nice little features, nothing revolutionary, but good infusion of AI into their product. It is definitely a black eye that they can't get it for launch. I mean, this is the best iPhone ever for AI, but the features aren't ready yet. I think really what's happening is their inference capacity is not ready. And them having to really build out the data center themselves for their private cloud compute is definitely what's slowing them down potentially. So it's a big issue for Apple. They are far behind Google in AI, And if people start to feel that, the Apple products are behind, they're not as good in AI, Google has better AI features, then it will hurt their sales. Absolutely. I think long term, it has the potential to totally kill their business as we know it today. So they've really got to be on top of this. Luckily, they do have some good assets. They've got a great chip team. They've got billions of users, which means right away, this will become one of the most used AI models out there, just for the fact that it's going to be shipping on millions and millions of iPhones. So, they're kind of in the race now, but they're not really training one large model. They have like really smaller, fine tuned models. Each feature has its own fine tune of the model for that particular task. So there's this kind of Apple LLM, but they have specific fine tunes for summarization, for prioritizing notifications, whatever. Each different feature has its own fine tuned version of the Apple LLM that's optimized for high performance. So it's not a very sort of flexible architecture. Although you can, like, they literally just have some of the prompts in there that they feed into the model. You can see them in the OS images. So it's an interesting approach. It's going to be big just because it's Apple, but it is concerning as an Apple investor, and I'm still holding all my Apple shares, that they are not able to ship the most cutting edge products today because they've traditionally not been great in services. And that is also carrying over into AI. They're not leading in AI. Google is far, far ahead of them, almost on par with OpenAI.
Interesting. And it's not just competition from Google, right? I mean, it's also the Chinese companies.
Definitely, Google is the other major smartphone operating system that competes with iOS, which is their bread and butter. So that's probably the biggest competitive threat for them, is if people go, hey, these Android phones, and a lot of them have like great stuff that iOS doesn't even have. You can get a foldable Android phone, you can get anything you want. There's a ton of device vendors that offer a ton of different features. And okay, here's this Android phone, and then on top of that, it's also got this great Google AI that's head and shoulders above anything I can get in the Apple ecosystem. And then you start realizing, hey, I can actually save a lot of money being in the Android ecosystem. There's obviously a lot of drawbacks, but it's it's potentially, Apple users, they like to have the best, right? They don't just want something that looks nice. They want all the latest technology. They want to have, the best, the latest, the greatest. So it could make some people Android curious if they are not able to deliver AI features that are on par with what you have on the other side of the fence.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Anything else on Apple, Robert? Anything on your side?
I bought 3 of them.
Did you? Okay. So you're the one keeping up the stock.
They're the first phones that have 8 gigs of RAM, which is used by the AI to accelerate the AI models. So even the cheaper of the 16s will run AI better than the 15. But that's a hard thing to sell to normal people right now. First of all, normal people don't know what models are. They don't really care about AI that much, other than when are you going to fix Siri and make Siri better, right? And I don't have it yet, so I can't tell you how much better Siri is. So I can't hype people up on, let's say this new Siri actually is really amazing. I can't tell you until this fall, and neither can Omar, right?
My guess is it's probably still going to suck. Right now in the iOS beta,
Well,
they have the old series still shipping, hooked up to the new UI.
yeah, except if you ask, let's say you drive, well, you live in San Francisco. So if I drive San Francisco and go to a restaurant and walk to, or park my car, walk to a restaurant, forget where I left my car, I can ask Siri, hey, take me back to my car, except it refuses. But if you ask it, please take me back to my parked car, it tells me where my car is. And that kind of stupidity should go away with a large language model helping out behind the scenes.
Don't you
Which
think that this topic is really related to Apple opening up this voice assistant to be able to communicate either with specific, like basically, it won't make any sense to have an app on your phone that Apple Intelligence can't in depth create a communication relationship with in some way, shape, or form. And that really kind of on some level transforms Apple. So they're not built for that. It seems like they are too slow on this aspect. This is what I was referring to in respect to the action button, right? Like being able to perform an action and then multiple actions. They're built off of restricting the requests that can happen with the apps on your phone as a form of security. That's kind of an issue. That's really what seems in my head to be holding them back.
Okay, Rich Vera.
Hey everyone. So I come from the smart home space. I've been, in that industry for about almost 15 years now, and this is kind of a talking point that has always existed between Google, Alexa, and Apple, and it's exactly what he was just talking about, which is, you know, Google and Alexa have always used the cloud for integration or their voice assistant to be able to control devices. And it always, in the public, seems like, well, hey, they're better than Apple. Apple is, let's say, dumb. Apple continues to just press forward in regards to the privacy component, which is they're always going to seem in the public like they're worse than the uh, other models that are out there. And so, for example, in the EU, I read an article over the weekend of Forbes talking about that part of the reason for the delay in the 18.1, which I've been using for a couple weeks now in Europe, is that they're looking for clarifications in regards to the EU Act in regards to Digital Markets Act, which allows for more openness or competitive, like side loading that they had to do out in Europe. And so Apple has this challenge where, you know, they truly believe that the intelligence needs to live on the phone to be able to kind of communicate between apps, which is called Apple Intent. There's this, I forgot what it's called, but it's app intents that kind of hook into other applications, but that needs to happen on the phone. And so that's kind of in the eyes of the EU regulations, they think that's the walled garden, and Apple just says, no, this is the way that we have to do our privacy. And so that's always going to be a challenge.
Thank you. Looks like Michelle agrees with you quite a bit. Michelle, would you like to add anything?
European regulation is a pain in the something. And yeah, the Apple is having difficulties, and then everybody's having difficulties trying to be compliant in Europe. And regulations are not written with the challenges of technology in mind, like specifically this one about what's on the phone, what's on private servers, and then what kind of data European citizens are able to get, because the big secret sauce that they're running behind the curtain, they sometimes have to give it away. As a European citizen, you can make a request to a company to get all of the data that they have on you, and that forces them to build some sort of feature to give you that data, and without giving away the secret sauce, which is really complicated for them to do.
Okay, thank you. All right. We talked OpenAI 01. We talked a little bit of macro. We talked Salesforce, Apple. Omar, have you watched the All In Summit interviews? I was spending some time this weekend going over them with Travis Kalanick, Sergey Brin, Mark Bainoff, Peter Thiel. And any one of them kind of stick out to you?
Honestly, I only watched part of Elon's, so that sounds like an amazing list of speakers. Maybe I do need to spend some time watching all those.
Yeah, some of them. I mean, there's every single one of them had a couple of sentences at a minimum that are very relevant to the things that we discuss and were original thoughts. So I recommend people watch it. Uzi?
Yeah, I watched a decent amount. I watched Elon, Travis, Sergey. I clipped Peter Thiel. That's pinned on my account if you want the thread of parts I enjoyed. And Megan Kelly, but I didn't watch Mark's.
Yeah.
No, I really enjoyed Peter Thiel was a lot more political than I was expecting. And then I mean I'm curious about Google, so listening to Sergey, I mean I didn't really find anything that
Yeah,
valuable from
I
it.
have some notes from all of them. Yeah, Peter Thiel was a very enjoyable one. Here are the couple of things I took up. Two of his goals is reduce deficit. If he can reduce deficit with no tax hikes with the new administration, he would be impressed. He said, and also prevent World War III. He says Gaza is warm up to China-Taiwan war in four. He said I think something along the lines that he'd be surprised if it didn't happen in 4 years. Pleasantly surprised. He said they talked about the decoupling from China. He mentioned one statistic that I thought was very interesting. He said there are 5 billion people living in countries where wages are lower than China. I didn't know that statistic. That really changes the conversation, I think, in my mind. He said, mentioned that he doesn't like buzzwords. He said AI is going to be very important, but transform the world maybe in 20 years. So he doesn't see it as a near-term revolutionary thing, I guess. Uzi?
Yeah, I'd agree with your assessment. From my, I guess, notes, he first started off with the election, some what I call base takes, but he was saying that the Democrats would kind of uh, fortify it. But this is interesting for us. When he's talking about AI, he talks about just two philosophies. There's the superintelligence camp and surveillance camp. I think that might be something to dive deeper into. And then the last one, I think you sort of touched it with the taxes. Historically said, we had this big Reagan tax cut in the 80s, which expanded the economy, and then free trade in the 90s with Clinton. And now we're sort of decoupling, at least from the free
Yeah.
trade. But yeah, his solution was get back to the future.
Okay. They took all global. I mean, I want to keep it to AI stuff. So AI is going to be very important, but maybe transfer the world in 20 years. US is still the country where people do things. He thinks that we're close to a recession. Attention is all you need, etc. They talked about that, and it's desirable to get more. At some point, attention becomes the worst thing in the world. Extreme optimism, extreme pessimism. Then Travis talked. I didn't really take notes from that conversation too much, although Travis's story was very interesting, and what he's doing with his new company is also very interesting. So I recommend people watch it as well. Sergey Brin, he said he cautioned people to not. So they were talking about the need for GPUs and how there's basically an arms race right now with GPUs. And he said he cautioned people to not extrapolate how much compute will be needed, like 3, 4 orders of magnitude ahead. He said, yes, it's huge right now, but he believes that there will be algorithmic improvements that outpace compute growth. Omar, do you agree with that?
Yeah, there's always algorithmic improvements because there's such a demand for better software that people start looking for ideas and they always find them. There's always better ways to do the software. And of course, the hardware and Moore's Law and our chip making abilities improving rapidly as well. These kinds of things make these astronomical compute increases we need actually palatable.
Okay. Sergey also said robotics are at the wow stage, but not yet at day-to-day usefulness. That was my another takeaway from that conversation, which I think aligns with Omar saying when we talk about Optimus and Figure AI and all that. Let's switch. That's a good segue to Figure AI. Omar, I sent a thread by Brett Adcock that he, I guess, started now doing AI news threads. Did you go through the thread? What did you think of it?
I didn't check the thread yet. I think he blocked me. Um, so I'll have to open it up in a browser.
We can go through it. I mean, this is kind of, I was like, oh, thanks, Brett. You kind of created the table of contents for this space, which is awesome. Michelle and Anuzi.
Well, I naturally ended up having the thread in my timeline, and I read it, and I then scrolled past it, and then you shared it, and I was like, "Wait, that's actually this guy?" And I found that hilarious. I didn't even realize what that thread was for. It was like, I scrolled to these, and it was kind of relevant, but I didn't realize who it was.
Yeah. I mean, I follow his tweets and Figure AI very closely because, although I believe Optimus will be the leading humanoid in the future, I want to understand what each company is doing differently. And, I think it helps the discussion and help us learn different choices that these companies make. Why are they making them, etc. Uzi?
Yeah, Brett blocked me too a little while back, but I do have an alt account. I did check it out a little bit. My gut instinct was this was really weird for a very busy CEO to be posting. It kind of reminded me of Rowan Chung's rundown, which is really good on AI. But I do think he has done this in the past when I was following him with this account.
Yeah, he does
Okay.
those roundups every week. And I don't know that it's him. It might be a social media team that puts it together or somebody who's ghostwriting for him.
Okay. He says it was a huge focus AI and robotics. So I summarize everything announced by OpenAI. So let's go to the first tweet. OpenAI officially released O1, also known as the Project Strawberry Q. We just talked about that. Sharing your thought to think before responding. Okay. Second tweet, which we also talked about, Apple announced Apple Intelligence. So skipping that. He says, my favorite feature in AI, accessing the iPhone's camera for visual intelligence on its surroundings. Okay. Third, Google DeepMind unveiled two new AI systems that advance robot dexterity, Aloha and DemoStart. The systems use diffusion methods similar to image generation models to predict robot actions from random noise. Good progress at DeepMind. Okay. Four, what is this company? Some Netherlands company, The Carpentier, created the Carpentopod, a wireless walking wooden coffee table. He developed his own custom motor control software and used a repurposed nunchuck controller for remote operation. Pretty neat. Okay. Google launched Audio Overviews, a new feature that turns notes into AI generated audio discussions between two virtual AI agents. This could be game changer for people who are auditory learners. Okay. Adobe previewed its Firefly AI video model. Three key features are coming: text to video, image to video, and generative extent. Instead of just focusing on AI video generation, Adobe is trying to create a new era for video editing as a whole. Interesting. Omar, where do you see Adobe kind of fitting into this future? Do you think they're going to get disrupted, or do you think they're going to be one of the leaders?
Well, they're definitely trying hard to incorporate generative AI into their products. Right now, I think it's looking like they could be a winner in all this. It could enable their software to do much more powerful things much more easily. And today's tools don't really let a designer replace their Adobe Creative Suite subscription. So it's possible it could be a disruption for them, but so far they've been very forward on generative AI with products like Firefly and incorporating these technologies across their Creative Suite.
Okay. Brett also listed White House is launching a new AI data center infrastructure task force. Okay. Google introduced Data Gamma, the first open models designed to connect large language models with real world data. The models use data from Google's data commons, aiming to reduce AI hallucinations by grounding responses in factual stats. Okay. Also launch Ask Photos and a few other tweets similar to that. Interesting. Michelle?
I want to touch back on Google audio overview. I mean, I'm a huge Audible listeners. I mean, I should try and get a sponsorship or something because I've been subscribed for 14 years to Audible. And that's the only way I consume books. I alternate between fiction and nonfiction, and sometimes in my nonfiction cycle, I'm trying to get some like I wanted to go through some very specific angle about AI and learn more. And like the books don't exist yet. There's just like a bunch of papers out there. And then I was able to use an early version of this, but now I'm glad that it's really open to anyone. And just create some like 45-minute long podcasts about a few papers I put in there, and it's much more listenable. Like I was listening to this while riding my bike, and this like there you go. There's like a podcast of like two AI characters that took a gist out of the what's in the papers, and they were just like talking and going through the entire thing. And it's a much more palatable thing than sitting down and reading paper. It's like my eyes go over the text, and then after a page, I'm like, "What did I just read?" But when it's audio like this, it goes straight into my brain. So for people like me, this is going to be huge. I think this is going to help students in school trying to absorb the material they're being asked to absorb, even if there's no audio video version of what they need to study for.
I'm
Awesome.
sorry, Michael. Are you referring to Notebook LM? Maybe I missed something.
Yes.
Okay. Just
Sorry.
FYI, his name is Michel, not Michael. I made a mistake for about a year
Sorry.
before he
Okay.
corrected me. I think majority of the board is blocked by Brett Adcock, huh? Somebody's asking in the replies, why is everyone blocked by Brett?
I haven't
Alex,
been blocked yet, but I could try.
me neither. We need a couple of people at least who are not blocked. Alex, are you blocked?
Yep. After
Yeah.
like, I think one post that
Really?
wasn't even tagging him or replying to him. You know, I just came across his stuff and I decided to post to my followers, you know, this seems a little fishy because XYZ. And next time, you know, I saw I was blocked. So the same thing happened with Trevor Milton, basically. No, Trevor Milton, I was in his mentions, though. I was replying to him and his company, and they both blocked me. But him, I didn't engage with him, but he came across my post and says, "You fucker," and he blocked me.
Alex,
So
let me ask something. So on a spectrum, let's say, on one end you have, I don't know this. Let me ask in a different way. Do you think this company is similar to Nikola and Trevor Milton? Or do you think this is going to be a viable competitor for Optimus, let's say, in the sense that Waymo is versus Tesla FSD robotaxis?
okay, it's a bit of a tricky question to answer because you gotta put yourself like if in Trevor Milton's shoes. He genuinely believed that he was going to make that company a success. I'm 100% sure of it. And he was faking it until he was going to make it. And this is like standard for every startup out there. The fact is that he was a little bit more scammy than most, and by little I mean maybe a lot more. And I think the same thing happens with Figure AI. It's the same type of pattern. There's no way this company could ever like amount to, something legitimate at scale. But he's going to fake it until he makes it. And, the only difference here is like, yeah, but he's probably going to go, get financing, go eventually through a SPAC, sell some shares. He's going to be a billionaire. and retail shareholders are probably going to get screwed. And is it a scam today? Is it going to be a scam when he's becomes very rich selling his shares? Like, at what point is it a scam? For me, I started thinking, is this realistic or is it not? Is this like a pipe dream that we can like, I could start an electric car company tomorrow. Electric motors, batteries, there's nothing revolutionary there. Am I going to make it as a automaker? Yeah, probably not. So if I'm convincing people that I'm amazing and I got amazing tech and I've got a contract or letter of intent from GM, because Mary Barra will sign anything you put in front of her, and I start selling stock and things like that, well, maybe I'm a scammer. You see what I mean, Yaman?
Yeah.
It's hard to know where he lands. He has less of a scammy vibe than Trevor Milton. I'll give him that. But when you go past the facade, it's basically the same game plan. And it's, Nikola was riding on the coattails of Tesla, the hype of that. And he's basically, again, riding on the coattails of Tesla, going with Optimus. He decided, well, people are hyped up about this. If I start up one, people are, if you build it, they will come, the investors, I mean. And that's exactly what happened.
Well, I see we have a couple of hands, and I'm curious about what Omar has to say on this topic too. But there's also the fact that Nikola was financed by GM, Mary Barra, like you mentioned. Mary Barra will sign anything, but Figure AI is financed by Microsoft and Nvidia, pretty knowledgeable investors.
Well, listen, like, okay, let's forget GM, but they had plenty of others. They had Bosch in Germany. They had like the truck maker, Iveco. They had the solar, don't remember the name of the solar anymore company. Then they had the one for the hydrogen making. They were backed by a lot of people and a lot of like industries around them. And you're like, all these people are not stupid. So Nvidia, Microsoft, OpenAI, they're not stupid either. And their investment is going to pay off. Same as all of these people who invested in Nikola, they made money. They didn't lose any money because their lockout period expired long ago while the stock was still high, and the news cycle, there was enough still positive news cycles for them to get out.
Okay.
And that's the game.
Very good. That's a real great point. I asked Gemini real quick who the investors are for Figure AI, and here's a list that one of them I didn't know was an investor. Check this out: Microsoft, OpenAI, Nvidia, Jeff Bezos, Parkway Venture Capital, Intel Capital, Align Ventures, and ARK Invest. What? That's news to me.
A little bit news to me too.
Yeah.
I
Uzi?
just wanted to mention. I mean, Alex said Brett's riding off Tesla's coattails. That's verbatim what I said to him in his comments. So if you don't want to get blocked, don't say that. But if you're risky, then you got it.
Yeah. Yeah, I prefer people don't get blocked by other people. But, that's the best, I think. Keep the communication channels open at a minimum. Chris?
I can't hear Uzi for some reason, but I would just be curious to know on Omar's perspective, also Alex or anyone that might have information on this, was he actually being deceptive though? Like, or was he just playing the game? I'd be curious to know this from your perspective. Obviously, Elon has had many like things that he said in which he promises things. Clearly, all of them that he's been saying eventually come true. But I'd be curious to know: is there a deceptive practice that he's employed, that, like, really puts him in a different category?
Okay. Omar?
Sorry, I'm on the phone with my dad. 1 second.
Okay. Robert, what do you think?
About Elon being on a separate, I didn't quite catch the question.
No, just kind of in general about Figure AI. We're talking about whether Figure AI is going to become a meaningful competition for Optimus, or do you think it's going to go by the way of Nikola?
Well, they have $700 million, so it's a little early to start predicting their death.
I was
Elon
actually
has.
referring to Nikola, like Tesla. Like I'm referring to that saga. I
Yeah, I
yeah.
got
Yeah,
it.
well, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in talking about more about figure AI. Thank you, Chris. Robert?
He has the ability to put robots into BMW's factory and learn from them and expand his business from that. I think that's going to be he's going to be a significant player because he has $700 million. Um,
Yeah,
I'm
well,
much
people.
more
That's
on
what
the
people
Elon
said about
side.
Rivian.
So,
That's what people said about Rivian. Rivian raised more than
I,
$20 billion, and they're
yep.
still going to by the way of
I'm not a big bet fan, so I haven't seen anything that shows that he has the ability to really disrupt a Tesla. He doesn't have He doesn't have cars. He doesn't have huge factories. He doesn't have the AI team that Elon has. So I don't know that he's going to be a disruptive force.
Okay, Michelle.
Let me just add to this, like the whole BMW and the factory. Like this is the same thing as that Nikola does. It's part of the tactics of these things. It's like BMW has nothing to lose. For them, it's very good PR. It's like Budweiser with Nikola. Oh, hydrogen trucks. Budweiser's going green. We've signed a letter of intent to blah blah blah. They have nothing to lose, so why wouldn't they do it? So yeah, they let a couple of bots in their factory. Is that going to mature into something that makes money for BMW? I doubt it.
Okay, Michelle.
Well, this week it looks like Figure used AI to compose lots of jobs offering. I mean, if you're in the kind of business they could have a use for, go look and apply, people, because they posted lots more jobs since they got that money. And I saw the memes about like, oh, they're just hiring like automations and then like scaling up productions kind of jobs now. When like we know that Tesla specialize in scaling up production, that's their bread and butter. Like so, they're very early, and now just like Alex said, they don't have that team yet. But maybe if you want to join that team, you can join them. So it's all going to be determined now. If the big brains end up working for them and making them valuable, they might succeed. It's unknown now which direction that's going to take.
Okay, thank you. 20-minute warning. 20-minute warning. Uzi Danobar.
Yeah, I put in the chat a video from May 30th, which Omar commented on. Basically, the criticisms that the figure bot is using rule-based planning, and the old man, as the robot moves an orange into another basket, the old man has to readjust the basket because the robot can't adjust for that. So that's some of the deception that figure employs.
Well, yeah, we just be careful with the word choice. Um, did they claim in May that they were not using that, for example?
Well, at that point, I was following, but I can't remember. Now I've been blocked, so I stopped paying attention.
Okay. Omar?
Yeah, I just think it's funny that Brett is posting these threads. Here's what's new in AI this week, just as sort of like a marketing for his account, so that AI people are doing it. I think if he was doing what he needed to make this a successful company, he probably wouldn't have time to post these threads, assuming he's doing it himself. But it was also interesting that he tweeted, "Does anyone have any books I can read about manufacturing? Anybody have any idea how to do this manufacturing thing?" And then, as George Hotz pointed out, why the hell is he reading about manufacturing when they need to build a viable product? Focusing on, we have a saying in software engineering: premature optimization is the root of all evil. You go, oh, let me make this faster. Let me optimize this process. And then you just optimize something that didn't even need to exist, or you just spend so much time on the right thing when actually what you need to do is just make a fast, cheap working implementation to show that it can work, and then optimize the points that are actually the failure points, because often the bottlenecks aren't where you expect. So really, they need to be focusing on getting a viable robot. They don't even know what they're going to be mass producing, because through that design process, you make so many discoveries about what the product's going to look like that, the manufacturing may look very different. But, I think he's kind of approaching it in a naive way based on his tweets. Of course, I don't know what they're doing, but, I did think Hotz's comment was kind of funny on that.
I noticed that too. Let's go to Fleet Profit and then Alex.
Hey, everybody. So I just wanted to selfishly ask the board their opinion on what a good LLM would be for my dev team to get more excited, more motivated to start getting into AI assisted development. I mean, other than the fact that their ass will be grass if they don't do this soon, but I've been encouraging them with financial incentives and what have you to start this transition, for quite some time. And I really do not want to have to replace some of these people, but I'm just really hoping to pick a few brains here and see what folks think.
Okay. Michelle, I saw Michelle just sent a post to the AI amateurs, and I'm guessing it's the one that OpenAI just posted and said, "We like what you're doing. We like your passion about O1. Therefore, we're increasing the rate from 50 messages a week to 50 messages per day." Is that the one, Michelle? Because we were just talking about
Yeah,
that.
and Sam reposted it saying, "We heard you. More of O1."
Really? Wow. They're definitely listening for sure. Sam is here. I mean, I do see 13 other listeners at the bottom. One of them is Sam. Other is Elon, Ashok, and God knows who else. Alex.
Yeah, I was just going to add to what Omar said, which I agree with, but I think there's like a chicken and the egg problem when you're headed towards mass manufacturing. It's not just about creating like a humanoid robot that works. It's one that you can manufacture at scale at a reasonable price, and this is what Tesla and Elon and the teams at Tesla have gone through many of these cycles, making tons of mistakes, figuring it out, and now they can iterate much faster. But if you don't know what manufacturing entails, you could be building like the best robot in the world that's like amazing, but that you can't manufacture under $500,000. And then what's the point? So I think there might be some. It's still funny that he asked like, "What book should I read?" That was hilarious. There's some truth with what George said and what Omar said, but there's also the fact that if you don't know anything about it at all, well, you might be building the totally wrong robot, and even optimizing stuff that should never exist in the first place. If you think of Elon's rules of iteration and manufacturing, you might have to delete a lot of things, and but if you don't know you have to do that, you're fucked when you're done like developing that robot.
Okay. Omar, would you like to answer Fleet Profit's question?
Well, are they using GitHub Copilot yet?
There's a few dabbling in that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, GitHub Copilot, pretty essential. That's not even an LLM. It'll just write your code for you. You just write, function like connect to SMTP server, and it's like, boom, just based off writing the function name, it'll write the entire function for you. And you won't have to look up documentation or do anything. So at this point, if you're a developer and you don't have GitHub Copilot on your computer, what are you doing? A lot of people are also using Cursor now. Cursor is a AI powered code editor. So that has some more powerful features. You can push like Command I and give it a prompt and have it write something. There's also the GitHub Copilot chat. And then, just use ChatGPT or Claude or whatever for coding questions when you're stuck with something. I mean, the first thing I do now when I get an error message like my code throws up an exception or something, is just like copy paste the stack trace into like Chat GPT, and it says, "Oh, well, you need to configure your SSL certificates for this," or something like that, and it just gives you the answer, and often tells you what changes you need to make. So it is just a game changer for developers. Instead of Googling the error message and finding someone with the issue and reading some Stack Overflow thread and finally you figure out the answer, it's just boom, here's the answer. And often it'll just go, here's the command you need to run to fix this. Just copy this, paste it into your terminal, and boom, now it works. So, absolutely, it's a life changer for developers.
Fleet.
One thing we're doing. My infra engineer is thankfully one of the guys getting on board on this, and we are in the process of essentially teaching our own internal, training our own model internally on all of our proprietary code that we've developed over the last 6 or 7 years. We have specialized code for certain industries, and I don't know, it's new to me. It's a space I'm trying to follow. I just wondered if anyone else was doing anything like that, where essentially now we can query our own code base and see how we've done this in the past. Ask LLMs to refactor older code that likely needs to be improved. Are we heading in the right direction with that sort of thinking?
I think it goes deeper than that. I call it AI first working. You should be using it. You should force yourself to use AI for every major decision to learn how it works. Learn whether it's good enough for you yet, because that's the only way you're gonna learn to incorporate this into your life, right? And if they don't get the point that you're trying to save their jobs, man, I don't know how to motivate people other than that.
Okay, good. Man, if you learned one thing today, we learned that Sam Altman attends AI amateurs and incorporates changes very quickly. He wants to learn about the latest and the greatest in AI from AI amateurs. Michelle?
Yeah, to this other speaker's point, putting old code base in an AI that has a huge context window and then trying to ask it for help regarding a current issue or to refactor the whole thing. I mean, that's something I know the banking industry is paying these contractors. Like these guys wrote this and worked with this super old code that runs our financial systems, and then they quote unquote retired, but then they get called when there's an emergency and they go like, oh, but well, my rate is $600 an hour, and they go like, yes, please come back, and then they go like, there's no way I'm coming back in the office. Let's set up a Zoom call, and then they work remotely and they make hundreds of dollars working on that super old code. So like there are a bunch of industries that have old code that not a lot of people are able to work with, that AI could pick up the slack on and help these businesses with. And Google is one of the avenues. They have the models with extremely large context window right now, and we see other players in the industry going in that specialized route as well. So that's going to be an interesting angle to help businesses with old code bases.
Okay, very good. 5 more minutes to go. Rich Burrell.
Yeah, just a super quick add-on for Fleet. As I consult, and when I come into companies, I have this challenge. Often, product teams are sometimes resistant. A consultant comes in who's going to make some suggestions. So what I would suggest is everything that Omar and Rob said, 100%. But you as the leader, creating a kind of a change management kind of document of what you're expecting to achieve out of that, and creating so part of the reason the resistance is there is because they don't feel like they have a safe space to experiment. So like even having a weekly meeting of what did you learn from dabbling with it yourself, doing all these different things, is how you get the buy-in. A lot of times I have the same problem in product companies. So just change management, being open about what you're trying to achieve. If you're going to get 30% better output, what does that translate to for them? So
Do
that's it.
do you do a demo day where you let's say next Friday, hey, anybody who has an AI example of how it coded for them, please show it off, kind of thing, and do that on a regular basis. That gets people to
Yeah.
see the innovation that other employees are doing, as well as what the tools can do, and then it starts a conversation, right? And people start getting on board that way.
Yeah, 100%.
I was just going to say that, after every sprint, we do a demo and retrospective. And, on this advice, essentially, we're going to do the demo, the retrospective, and the what has AI done to improve your life. And basically, everybody's going to need something to say. And I think that's the way to do it. You guys have helped a lot. Appreciate it.
Good. And then the other thing you can do is to bring them into space. AI amateurs, Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. We are all learning together. Anything else? I'm going through the replies to Brett's thread, Omar, and people are saying one comment that stuck out to me. Google releasing 5 things in 1 week is very impressive. Google finally bringing in the heavy integrations it's been promising for a while.
Yeah, 5 things nobody's going to use and that nobody heard about and that they're going to kill next year.
You
No, but
feeling
what do you
optimistic
really
today?
think, Omar?
No,
Tell us how you really
I'm just
feel.
stating a fact,
No, I'm just.
Raise
But
your
it's
hand if you use Data Gemma this week.
Brent?
Yeah, AI Amateurs episode 1 through 6. Are those available where? Thank you.
YouTube is the best place to find it, because it's just easier to find. But or you can just search on X from Valley Analyst 1, and but YouTube is probably the best place.
Thank you.
Yep. Michelle?
I mean, I used Gems, and maybe topic for next week is like Gems versus GPTs. I've been trying to do that, and I will do some more this week. It's valuable in different ways, and sometimes OpenAI is better, sometimes Google is better, and I'm trying to put my finger on when that exactly happens. So like, we'll see next week about that, but it's really interesting.
Uzi?
Yeah, I don't want to steer the conversation in a whole new way if we have 5 minutes, but let me know.
Go ahead.
So I didn't watch the complete video, but I saw Zarathustra, great account. He posted, and Elon responded to this post, and it was about this guy Stuart Russell saying that I guess there's two that there will be like I guess super intelligence where you'll have millions of robots connected by one gigantic brain. I'm not sure how that will take form though.
I read a whole post about that when I was in the museum this week, and I was teaching it about something it didn't know, an artist that was in the museum there, and it said recording, which is recording it for my own account, but it also could be feeding that data into the next training set for the next model and fixing problems with the training set of its knowledge, for instance. And there's a lot that can be done with that. But it's early days. Soon we're going to be wearing glasses and talking to these AI models all day long, teaching them things in real time. By the way, why isn't it? Is Grok listening right now? Yes, it is.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
Our
Hasn't shown
Grok.
up in the models yet, but X.com is transcribing everything and storing the transcription at minimum. and probably your voice as well if you're talking on a space.
Okay, fine by me. Our Grok expert is missing in action, MIA, for 5 weeks in a row. The YouTube account is at the top of our screens, and a quick shout out for our sponsors who make this space and Tesla Live possible. Tesla Live, AI Amateurs is proudly sponsored by Joa, your go-to source for premium Tesla accessories. Because you're part of the community, Joa is hooking you up. Use code TSLA Live for a special discount at checkout. And Pay More. The link is at the top of our screens. Pay More buys, sells, trades, and recycles electronics because Pay More believes the best technology doesn't have to come at the cost of our planet or your wallet. Join the Pay More revolution if you're upgrading to your iPhone or you have all the electronics collecting dust around your house. You can turn them into hard cash at paymore.com. The link is at the top of our screens. Any final words, Omar?
I welcome our new AI overlords.
All right. This was a very enjoyable conversation. I recommend, if those of you who joined just now, I recommend listening from the beginning, whether on YouTube or X, your favorite platform. And I'll chat with you guys tomorrow in Tesla Live at 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.